Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Ask Kati Anything. I'm your host, licensed marriage and family therapist, Kati Morton. I'm so glad that you're here. In today's episode, we've got a lot to cover, okay? I'm going to talk about what it really means to learn trust and stability in trauma therapy, how to navigate therapy when past experiences make these concepts feel foreign, and why a therapist might delay trauma-focused work. I'm also going to cover strategies for setting boundaries without self-shaming, managing anger and resentment towards others, understanding learned helplessness and what we can do to get out of it, and coping with social anxiety. Then I'll also talk about toxic shame and lingering heartbreak. Like I said, we've got a lot to get through. Without further ado, let's jump into question number 1. This question asks, "Hey Kati, I've recently started treatment for severe depression and CPTSD, or complex post-traumatic stress disorder. My therapists often say that I need to learn to trust them and become quote unquote stable before we can start trauma processing like EMDR. The problem is that I genuinely don't understand what those concepts mean in practice." Makes sense. "I grew up having to take care of myself emotionally and experienced different forms of abuse all throughout my life. So relying on someone else feels like a completely foreign concept. I'm also autistic, and abstract emotional concepts like trust or stability can be hard for me to understand. To be honest, I've been so busy surviving and stuck in a fawn response most of my life that I feel like I completely missed learning how to be a child, a teenager, and even an adult. It's almost like I accidentally put the instruction manual for life through a paper shredder, and now I'm trying to piece the confetti back together." I love that visual, by the way. "And to make it even worse is that therapy is so overwhelming that my suicidal ideation is getting worse because I simply can't believe that I can ever get better, because I don't even know what that means. Because of that, I often feel like I don't even understand what therapy itself is supposed to be or what my role in it is. What does stability actually look like in trauma therapy? And how can someone learn to trust a therapist when their concepts never really existed in their life before? Does this make me untreatable, or am I just dumb? Thank you for everything that you do." Okay, you're not dumb and you're not untreatable. I just want to get that out of the way right away. I think sometimes, unfortunately, therapists, myself included, I hit my microphone there, sorry. But myself included, will use terms without explaining what they mean because we, unfortunately, will assume that you're on the same page as us, even when you're not. And I like I said, I've been just as guilty of doing this. I'll use phrases like stable or recovery and not explain to my patient what I mean by that. And so I would encourage you, number 1, to ask your therapist what they mean by this. Not to say I don't understand. You can just say the concept seems kind of, esoteric or very amorphous. I don't really know what that would look or feel like. Could you walk me through it? And you could even say, due to my autism, some concepts like this are hard for me to visualize or imagine or know what the experience would be like. It's okay to ask. I feel like meaning behind words matters, especially in therapy and especially in our healing. And so there's nothing wrong with asking. Now, because you asked me, I'm going to give you my idea of what this looks like and what that could feel like for you. And the first, because these are two different, trust and stability are two different concepts in my brain, okay? Now, the first part, let's attack trust first. Now, when they say that your therapists want you to learn to trust them, what that means isn't, it's less about trust, the word itself, and it's more about you believing in the process. Meaning that if we trust our therapist, it's like we can let our defenses down, at least somewhat, in therapy because we are believing in them to lead us in the right direction, right? We know that the challenges that they're giving us, the things that kind of make us want to go, stick our spines out, defenses go up, we're like, I don't have to do that. It doesn't mean that we won't have our defenses pop up, but we'll feel okay considering letting them down. Does that make sense? It's like we are believing in our therapists or our team that they're not there to hurt us. We're trusting in the process at the very least, and hopefully slowly but surely learn to trust in them specifically. Now, if we had abuse growing up, this is going to be really hard. And I'm a therapist. All therapists are going to have different takes on this. I personally don't believe that my patients need to trust me, but the learning to trust, I think, is key. Like that you're willing to try to do that work. And I think that's what I would more lean into, is like making sure that you're willing to try to learn to trust someone, to even be open. It's almost like bridge statements, being open to the possibility that people out there might want better for you, might want to help you, might want to support you, not hurt you, not abandon you, not be emotionally neglectful like your parents were, but instead want to protect you, support you, and see you do great things. And so just being open to that hope for that future, or that they could think and act in that way, I think is part of that. And that's what I would kind of consider. I don't know if that's more helpful or more tangible for you. I think in general, the bodily feeling that I want you to get in therapy is that, yes, it's challenging. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but overall, you believe at some part of yourself that it's going to help you get better. And that's that trusting them piece. I think that's what they mean. Okay. Now, moving into the second component, the stability, when it comes to EMDR, and I've talked about this over the years, and maybe I didn't do it justice. Again, language is important, and understanding a term is going to be very key here, especially for you, is that in EMDR or in any trauma processing, if we are so dysregulated, so overwhelmed that we're dissociated, right? Our brain pulls the ripcord on reality. We feel out of self. We feel out of environment. Maybe we don't even remember our therapy sessions. If that's happening, there's no trauma processing that's really occurring, because our brain has to stay present in the moment as we talk through the past and the traumatic experiences in order to give our brain and nervous system another chance to work through it. Does that make sense? If we aren't present in it and thinking it through again, we're not really giving our brain and body a chance to process it. We're doing what we maybe did in the moment way back when that trauma occurred, where we dissociate, we pull the ripcord, or we completely shut down. We have to find a way. I wouldn't even use the word stable. I would instead say we need to find a way to be able to stay present so that we can actually reprocess. And that's really a key component when it comes to trauma work. And I think maybe they're using stable when they really mean being able to stay grounded. Now, stability, you could use that interchangeably, but again, remember, language is important. And you're like, I don't know what that feels like. To be stable, I believe, and I would ask them for clarification, because again, this is my interpretation, but I believe what they're saying is they want you to be able to stay grounded, to stay present most of the time. It's never going to be all. That's why, we don't say like 100%. Things are going to get intense and you might dissociate or you might be dysregulated. But for the most part, they want to know that as they do this trauma work with you, that it's benefiting you, that you are reprocessing, because that's the whole goal, right? We give our brain and body another chance to talk through, work through what happened to us. And that hopefully helps us, kind of put it into the glass ball, like I talk about inside out, like those marbles, right? Memories that are fully processed are put into those little marbles and rolled away into our long-term memory. Trauma memories are dropped on the floor and like shattered all about, which is why when we walk through life, we step on those splinters and have those flashbacks, because that memory hasn't been fully put together so that it can be rolled away into long-term memory. And so as you're doing this reprocessing, we have to stay present enough to look down and to see all those splinters and slowly piece them together into the marble that they belong in, if that makes sense. And so that's why it's really important to be grounded and to be present so that we can put that marble back together and roll it away. I think those were your only questions. What does stability actually look like in trauma therapy? It's essentially having coping skills and grounding techniques in an effort to keep you present so that you don't dissociate, you don't shut down, you don't feel completely dysregulated. It's still going to be exhausting. I don't want you to think that all of this is going to make that exhaustion go away. Trauma work is hard and it will still be exhausting, but you'll be able to remember your sessions, okay? And stay present. And I guess, how can someone learn to trust a therapist when those concepts never really existed? Little by little. I believe instead of thinking you have to trust them, like I said, do those bridge statements where you're like, I'm open to the belief that therapy will make me better and that the people I'm seeing, it's possible that they want good things for me. I'm open to thinking that. And we'll just start there. Start with that we're open to the possibility, because jumping to trust too quickly isn't good either. It's something that has to be earned. And so we have to take our time with it, because trust isn't something that you're going to be able to give freely because of your past. It's also not something I want you just to dole out either. It's something I want you to learn how to let people earn it. And I might even encourage you to think or journal about what you think the process would be to get you to a place where you feel like you could maybe think someone is a safe person or an okay person or someone you could trust. I don't know if you want to use those words. You could insert, whatever, but that it's like, what would make someone an okay person in your book? What would that look like? I think that might be helpful too. Okay. I hope that is helpful. Keep us posted. Question number 2 says, "Hi, Kati. We talk about setting boundaries for ourselves and holding ourselves accountable when we break our own boundaries. Thank you to ZocDoc for sponsoring today's podcast. Raise your hand if you've ever put off making a doctor's appointment." Yeah, same. I think a lot of us do this thing where something feels off, and then instead of actually booking the appointment, we Google our symptoms, convince ourselves it's nothing, or worst case, we spiral a little and don't do anything about it. And honestly, a big part of that is because finding the right doctor can feel overwhelming. We don't just want someone who's available, we want someone who listens, explains things clearly, and actually makes us feel comfortable. That's why I want to tell you about ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so you can find someone that you love. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states. Whether you're looking for dermatology, dentistry, primary care, eye care, or one of the other 200 plus specialties offered on ZocDoc, you can easily search by specialty or even by symptom to build the care team that's right for you. Appointments made through ZocDoc happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours, and you can even score same-day appointments. Plus, you can choose between in-person visits or video visits, depending on what works best for you. Honestly, anything that lowers the barrier of taking care of ourselves is a huge win. And if I needed to find a new doctor, this is exactly what I would use. So stop putting off those appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/Kati to find and instantly book a doctor that you love today. That's ZocDoc.com/Kati. ZocDoc.com/Kati. Thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this message. Question number 2 says, "Hi, Kati. We talk about setting boundaries for ourselves and holding ourselves accountable when we break our own boundaries. But how do we accomplish this without shaming ourselves or punishing ourselves?" This is a great question. And first, like always, whenever I talk about boundaries, I want you to know that boundaries are what we are going to do in relationships to keep ourselves and the relationship healthy and happy. Meaning that boundaries are not a request. Boundaries aren't "stop talking to me that way." I can ask someone to do that, but they can or cannot listen. They can honor my request or they can be like, screw you, right? Boundaries are, I wish you'd stop talking to me that way. And if you don't, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Or I'm going to hang up. That's the boundary, the not talking, the hanging up, the walking away, whatever action we're going to take, right? Because we can only control ourselves. Now, keeping that in mind, with this question, it's hard to set boundaries, especially if we grew up in an environment where they weren't respected, or maybe we were shamed for even thinking about them. They were seen as disrespect, or maybe just nobody had them. We don't even know what they look like, right? So it's going to be hard to set them. And we're also going to often break them ourselves, meaning that I'm going to set the boundary and be like, "Don't talk to me that way." And then I proceed to let them talk to me that way. And I don't do anything. Or I tell them, "Don't call me after 10 p.m., but I leave my phone on. And when they do, I still pick up," right? We've all done it. We've all set these internal boundaries or promises that we've made to ourselves, or we've said them to other people, and then we pretend they don't exist. You're not alone. That's a very normal response because boundaries are hard. Like I said, especially if we grew up in an environment where we didn't have them or they weren't respected at all. Therefore, I want you to give yourself a little compassion for the breaking of the boundaries in the way you talk to yourself. And the way I want you to start doing this is actually through, I know, don't have to journal. You guys know I love journaling. It's helpful to get stuff out of our heads. I know it's frustrating. Somebody's like, "Do you have a whole wall full of filled journals?" Pretty much. I do. I actually have a lot of them. And I periodically will just either throw them away, shred them, burn them, things like that, because I don't need to keep all that. Or you can, up to you. But I want you to journal about how boundaries were respected or not, understood or not in your family growing up. And the reason I want you to start there is because sometimes we forget where we came from. We forget that we didn't have any of that guidance, any of that blueprint for life. And then we go out into life expecting, because we hear on social media, we hear from other people that boundaries are key. And you have to have healthy boundaries, you have to protect your peace, protect yourself from other people. We hear that all the time. But if we didn't grow up with it, we don't really know what that looks like. And we need to remind ourselves of that so that we can offer ourselves compassion as we learn to do something new. And when we do something new, I think people often think like, oh, change is so good and you're going to feel so good. You will down the line, but we're kind of skipping over that part where it feels really uncomfortable. We think we're doing something wrong. It's so unfamiliar, we're scared. We might feel anxious. All of that just tells us we're doing something that we haven't done before. And we forget to offer ourselves compassion when we're in that. We think that, oh, we're supposed to just jump into doing that. I should be able to set boundaries and uphold them. No. You didn't know how. It's like teaching a child to throw a baseball or something. At first, if you've ever tried to play catch with a child, it's like you don't know where the ball is going to go. It could go straight at you like a rocket, or it could shoot straight into the ground, or it might go and fly into a window or hit your car. You don't know because they don't have full control over it. And I think that when it comes to boundaries, we don't really know how to do it. We're just learning. It's like we're stumbling around trying to figure it out. And so remind yourself of how it was dealt with growing up, what it looked like in your family growing up. And then here's a really important piece in this journaling. I want you to then tell me how you're doing with it now. Have you been able to tell somebody your boundaries or at least put in that request? Have you acted differently once or twice, even if it's for 20 minutes? Have you? Because that's great progress. That's akin to a child throwing the ball and it hits you right in the chest. You're able to grab it with your mitt. Boom, you did it. Yes. Now, was it perfect and do it over and over and over and you're like a pro? No. But do we expect you to be a pro? No. It's still your first time doing it. So that's why I think that's kind of an important piece when it comes to that blaming and shaming is there's nothing wrong with you because you didn't grow up learning something. It's not your fault. You had no control over that. But you're taking what you did get, the story that you were told, the behaviors that you learned through your family, you're taking all that and you're moving forward and you're trying to do better. That's amazing. And you should be proud of yourself instead of shaming and blaming. But I totally know where this is coming from. You're not alone in this. I've done it myself and I get frustrated when I'm like, I'm not going to call her back. She's been so rude. I don't want her to talk to me that way. But I don't know how to communicate it because I never grew up in a house where we like had conflict openly. I don't know how to repair. And I'm such a people pleaser. I hate conflict, right? All those things. And so when I finally do it, then I take it back. Or like I'll try to set a boundary, but in setting a boundary, I give it a loophole and give a whole TED talk about it. It's just chaos. So know that I understand it. I know where you're coming from, but shaming and blaming gets us nowhere. What does get us somewhere is figuring out where we've come from, where we're at, and then I'd encourage you to what you're looking forward to. What would be the end goal? If you were like a master boundary setter, what do you think that would look like? And how would that play out in your life? And the reason I want us to kind of do this work, this is where I came from, this is where I'm at, this is where I'm going, is because it allows us to see the progress. It also allows us to offer compassion for where we started and again, recognize that progress, that where we're at. But then it gives us hope for the future, that this could get better. It already is getting better, right? We already are moving forward. We often overlook our small steps thinking it needs to be perfect, that the thing that I do has to turn out, I need to set this boundary so clearly and uphold it forever. Yes, and that's it. It's like black and white, all or nothing. When in reality, life is never like that, right? We're 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes we're 1 step forward, 2 steps back, but we're still trying. We're still getting out there and taking those steps. And I want you to acknowledge that. And I think that journaling process will hopefully help you pull yourself out of this shaming yourself kind of cycle you've gotten into. Because I'm proud of you for even trying. And I know setting and upholding boundaries in the long term is really hard and uncomfortable. So kudos to you. Okay. Journal that out. Let me know. And keep me posted. Moving on to question number 3, this question reads, Hi, Kati, could you please talk about how to stop feeling resentful when someone has behaved terribly towards you, especially when you feel and have noticed that they do it on purpose? Ugh, I hate that. I know that forgiveness is important, but I feel that it doesn't work because my mind ruminates a lot about their terrible behavior, and I feel extremely angry and resentful to the point that it interferes with my daily life. I love this question because it's incredibly relatable. I think we've all been there where we don't like someone, they've done something really hurtful, and it's almost like we can't let it go. And there are a couple pieces of this I want to talk about. And the first, and I don't know if this will resonate as much with you as it did with me, but there was research, and I'm forgetting the woman's name, but she wrote a book. I even have it on my bookshelf. I should have looked it up. I'm so sorry to the woman who did all this research. Though she did research on the effect in our nervous system and in our blood is really, they tested how long an emotion lives in your system. And the way that they did that is, when you feel angry, excited, like your body dumps certain hormones or chemicals, for lack of a better term, whether it's in neurotransmitters. These could be things like cortisol or adrenaline, extra dopamine, things like that are going through your system. They found a way to test for them, and they noticed that if something happened to us and we experienced an emotion, it only lives in our system for 90 seconds. And that blew my mind, because I've been angry and resentful for years, right? Or days at the very least. And the reason that we end up feeling that way and having the emotions repeat, like I'm angry for longer than 90 seconds, I think we all could say like that's a pretty normal human experience, is because I keep thinking about the thing that angered me or keep interacting with it. And so it's like I keep causing the anger. And even though that was kind of frustrating, I was like, oh my God, I've been just causing it in myself all this time. That wasn't really the big moment to me. The moment, I think, or the realization rather, was that like, wow, I actually only have to feel like shit, or I only have to feel angry for 90 seconds. The rest is kind of up to me. That felt really empowering, that I can choose to not continue to harm myself with the thing so that I stop feeling angry, or I stop feeling sad or disappointed or whatever it is, right? That means that I can do things to feel better, to stop having that experience. Amazing. And you might be asking, well, how do I do that, Kati? Because I've been feeling like shit for a long time. I totally hear you. And the real way that, for me at least, not only as a therapist, but also as a person sharing this earth that does that stuff too, I find the best thing for me was first to let myself actually feel the hurt associated with it. And the reason I say it that way is because I don't know about you, but when someone does something that I think is terrible, harmful, disrespectful, anger comes first. The secondary emotion, or that like protective emotion of anger, comes out to make sure that I am okay. And in the anger coming forward, I don't ever let myself feel vulnerable, which is that hurt feeling, right? That's because anger is protecting me. It's doing its job. But by doing its job, it prevents me from actually admitting or acknowledging the emotional experience. Does that make sense? And so in order for me to move past it, I have to first acknowledge, almost like name the experience, consider what it was like for me, how I felt, what I was worried about, why it was so wounding. I have to run myself through it. I know it's kind of painful and frustrating, but I think that piece, the fact that it's painful and frustrating, but we allow ourselves to feel it, is what lets you out of this rumination cycle. Because when we don't allow ourselves to experience something, our brain and body try to give us more opportunities to do it. Hence, rumination. It's like it's going back and forth, over and over and over, hoping that one of these times it'll process it enough that we can let it go. And you have to give your brain and body kudos. Be like, good job, buddy. You were doing the best you could with what you got, but I have to actually push myself past that and into the real experience so that then it can let it go. I don't have to try to make sense of it. I already have. I've already done it. I've already done the work of admitting that it was painful for this reason, or I thought the relationship was better than it was, and then that makes me feel like a failure, or maybe that makes me feel like I'm unlovable. That pokes into my old childlike wounds, whatever comes up for you. I'm just naming stuff that you can acknowledge that. And then I believe, and personally, this has been my experience, then and only then can I let it go? Can I stop that spiral? I also want to acknowledge that rumination can be fueled by anxiety. I think for a lot of us, we ruminate on something because we have anxiety about it. Remember, anxiety is uncontrollable worry. So nothing we do can make us feel any better. We just constantly worry about this thing. We ruminate over and over. And because we aren't doing anything to change it, or we don't have any power to change it, it just spirals and spirals and spirals, right? And I believe in acknowledging what we're worried about, again, going back to that, like naming it, we can kind of take the fuel away from that rumination. Does that make sense? I hope so, because that's been how I've kind of gotten my way out of it. I found my way out from those rumination cycles. And I don't even think, forgiveness is going to be a piece here at some point, but I don't even want to touch it yet, because speaking personally, when I'm first still angry and ruminating and still having a tough time, forgiveness feels miles away, because it is. It takes us some time to let ourselves off the hook. Remember, forgiveness isn't about us condoning their behavior or saying that everything's okay. It's more about, I forgive you so that I can let it go. It's about us. Forgiveness is actually letting yourself off the hook, because I don't need to stay hurt by this. But we're not at that place yet. And I don't mean that like forgiveness is going to take forever and we should always take our time with it. No, I'm just saying in this case, because it is such a painful thing and you think they're doing things on purpose and they're kind of like malicious in their intent, we're not ready to forgive them yet. We're right at the point where we have to acknowledge the pain that they've caused. We have to decide how we want to respond, because we could decide, I don't want this person in my life anymore. I don't want to see them anymore. Or if I have to, because I work with them or they're part of my family, then I get to decide through boundaries and clear communication how often that's even going to take place. Am I not going to respond to their texts, but I'll see them at group activities? Sure. Or whatever it is. I'll be at their house for 1 hour once a month. That's all I got to give. We get to decide. And those are kind of the boundaries you can place, and like you can limit your interaction, but we don't have to jump to that forgiveness yet. We have to allow ourselves the time to process it, because the one thing rumination doesn't do is it doesn't actually let us process anything, because it's just replaying the same things over and over. It's almost like 99.9% repeat thoughts. And since they haven't turned out yet, right, we have to try something different. So that's my advice. I hope it makes sense. I know it's kind of all over the place, but that's what really helped me, because I used to get caught in those kinds of cycles when I was younger, where I just like couldn't let something go because I thought somebody did something that was like so unforgivable, so bad. But instead of letting myself acknowledge the pain, I just like, it wasn't even not acknowledge the pain. It's like acknowledge what it really did to me. I just ruminated on all the reasons that they were an asshole. And surprise, surprise, I didn't feel any better. And so I'm here to tell you that the way out is actually through your own feelings, your own responses, how it really affected you, and what you're going to do to make your life better. Because again, we can only control ourselves. If someone wants to be a dick, they can. There's nothing we can say or do to change them, but we can change the way that we interact with them and just in other areas of our life. So you got this. You can get through it. Trust me, I've done it. It just takes time, and we have to be patient with ourselves as we allow ourselves to experience it for real, be vulnerable with it. Okay. Let's move on to question number 4. This question says, hey, Kati, I hope you're not working too hard and enjoying life. I am. I hope you are too. I have a question that I desperately want to know the answer to. I looked on Google, ChatGPT, and even Reddit, but it's not giving me a clear understanding of why might my therapist not want to do trauma work with me? Thank you to Kachava for sponsoring today's episode. You know that moment in the afternoon where you just need a little something? For me, it's usually about 3 p.m. where I feel like I go into a slump and my brain is tired. I've been working all day and suddenly I'm craving something that feels like a treat, like coffee or something sweet. And I used to either ignore it or go all in and then feel kind of blech later. But lately, I've been trying to find ways to actually enjoy those moments and support my overall health. And that's where Kachava has really come in. They just launched their new coffee flavor, and it genuinely feels like that perfect middle ground. It has this really smooth, rich coffee taste made with premium decaffeinated Brazilian beans, which I love because it satisfies my craving without making me feel all jittery. And what I appreciate is that it's not just about the flavor, it's also giving your body something real. Kachava is an all-in-one nutrition shake made with high-quality ingredients, so you're getting plant-based protein, fiber, greens, adaptogens, and so much more, all in one. It's been such an easy way for me to support my energy throughout the day and just feel a little more balanced, especially on my busy days. Plus, it's clean nutrition. There's no artificial flavors, colors, or sweeteners, no GMOs, no soy, no animal products, no gluten, and no preservatives. It really feels like one of those small shifts that makes a big difference, where you're still treating yourself, but in a way that actually supports you. Treat yourself to the flavor and nutrition your body craves. Go to kachava.com and use code Kati for 15% off your first order. That's Kachava, KACHAVA.com, code Kati. Let's move on to question number 4. So it says, hey, Kati, I hope you're not working too hard and enjoying life. I am. I hope you are too. I have a question that I desperately want to know the answer to. I looked on Google, ChatGPT, and even Reddit, but it's not giving me a clear understanding of why might my therapist not want to do trauma work with me? I thought that was the whole point of therapy. For trauma therapy, yes. Well, we'll get to this. For context, I'm diagnosed with BPD, anxiety, ADHD, and depression. I got out of an IOP program. Now, IOP stands for intensive outpatient. It's pretty much like a day program, or for some people, they'll stay at the facility for chunks of the day. But yeah, so it's like you're there for most of your day, every day. So an IOP program that I left early because I wasn't learning anything. But that made me think my therapist could just teach me skills that I was supposed to learn there. I'm curious why you didn't feel like you were learning anything at the IOP program, but I'd have to know more about it. So during my last session, I was venting to her about my poor performance at work that made me think of past traumas relating to everything that I struggle with. I asked if we could do trauma work and can I ask her questions about different terms that come up? But her response wasn't what I was hoping for, which was a simple just, yes, sir, of course. Instead, she said, you can get a pen and paper and take notes if you want. What? After that, I kind of shut down and didn't say much because I felt like that the moment I actually speak up for myself, she doesn't see it as a big deal. I told her I'm tired of being reminded of the past anytime I'm inconvenienced in life and that I'm ready to put it behind me. But she said I need to process it and move on. Isn't that trauma work? I'm so confused, but I don't know how to do that. That's why I thought trauma work is processing it. Yes, it is. It says, I don't know, ? No, you're right. Anyway, why might she avoid trauma work? Is it because we're doing DBT therapy? Maybe. Or because she doesn't think I have trauma? No, I don't think that. She doesn't talk about BPD, borderline personality disorder. That's what that stands for. And DBT, by the way, is dialectical behavior therapy. It's a style of therapy that works for people with borderline personality disorder. Please explain. Thank you for all you do. You really help me when I'm at my lowest. Of course, I'm so glad I can be here. Now, we have a comment on top of this that's similar, but let's just dig into this because there's already a lot to unpack. Now, dialectical behavior therapy is a very specific type of treatment, and it in and of itself is not really trauma therapy, okay? And the reason I say it like that is because I myself, for many, many moons, was a certified DBT style of therapist. I got I don't know if it's a credential. I had to do it every year and get recertified in dialectical behavior therapy. I have let it lapse. I'm so sorry. But since I don't see patients in private practice anymore, I didn't think it was worth paying all the money for it. So I haven't done that in a while. And I bring that up because DBT in and of itself has some things that would help people who have PTSD, things like emotion regulation, like finding ways to manage what comes up for us and having other tools to deal with that. All of DBT is helpful for everybody. So like mindfulness component's really important. It's really important to have interpersonal effectiveness, meaning like your relationships can improve. Has a lot of communication skills that are in there that are really valuable. All of the pieces of DBT could help anyone, but it in and of itself is not a trauma-based treatment. But if your therapist didn't want to do trauma work with you because they offer is DBT, then they should say that. And that would be very clear. So I might ask your therapist straight up about this, because what you asked your therapist wasn't really, can we do trauma treatment? You were venting to her and you said, I asked if we can do trauma work and can I ask her questions about the different terms that come up? I guess you did if we can do trauma work, but she said you can get a pen and paper. I feel like she didn't maybe understand your question because her answer doesn't make sense to me. Like you can take notes if you want. I think she was focusing mainly on the terms that like, if you wanted to better understand the terms, she would tell you and you could write them down. I might say that too. I don't think that's really a bad response. If someone was like, hey, if different terms come up, like, can you help me better understand? I'd be like, sure. And you can take notes so that you have them for reference, that makes sense for the terminology. But when it comes to the trauma work, I might ask one more time. And the reason that I say this is because her answer doesn't make sense. If all she offers, and not all being like, she doesn't offer enough, but if she's primarily a DBT style of therapist, then she's not going to be able to do trauma work with you. And the fact that she said like you should just process it and move on leads me to believe that she doesn't understand trauma at all. That's a very simplistic, non-structured way to answer that. You should just process and move. Well, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. That's why I'm asking you like to help me. You're like, help me. So I really would ask one more time about the trauma work. And if she offers it, that's how I would propose. I would ask the question this way: is trauma work something that you offer? Because I'm sick of it. I feel like it's running my life. It's kind of what I got out of this, is like, I feel like everywhere I go, I'm reminded of it and it's annoying and I hate it. And so I would ask her, is trauma work, or do you do trauma work in your therapy practice? Is that something you can offer me? Because that's something that I feel that I need. That's how I would say it. If she says no, or says like, I mean, I can help you talk through it, or kind of downplays it, or you don't get a good answer for you, then it's okay to either ask her or start doing your own research to find someone that can. Because if she says, well, I don't really, but I can start with you, say, well, do you have anybody you'd recommend? That's okay. I know you're like, Kati, I don't want to start with a new therapist. Well, it doesn't sound like we can start with this one either. Maybe she's definitely probably helpful for your borderline personality disorder, but I can tell you that it's inextricably linked to trauma, usually for a lot of us. And so we're going to have to get that trauma work, whether it's EMDR, whether it's somatic experiencing, or some other type of like trauma focused CBT, for example, some type of trauma treatment. She's going to have to, we're going to have to get that available to you in some way. And I understand why you shut down, because it feels really invalidating. It feels like she's kind of like ignoring your question. And so I would ask one more time, if trauma work is something that she can offer, if she can help you, do that. And if not, does she have anyone she can recommend? And then just say it again. Like, I just feel like, I'm reminded of my past anytime I'm inconvenienced in life, and I'm sick of it. I don't want to do this anymore. So I want to get that working. But you are correct that trauma work is processing it. That's why I don't understand her, like the fact that she just need to process it and move on. That feels very invalidating. It's almost like, how come you haven't done it yet type of language, which is just so not therapeutic, not helpful. And so I might push again a little, or start looking for someone who does trauma work, because I believe that will really help. You said she doesn't talk about BPD, but she does dialect. I don't understand, because DBT was created, for those of you who don't know, dialectical behavior therapy's origins come from Marsha Linehan, who's a woman herself who has borderline personality disorder. I don't know if she's a therapist or a psychologist, but either way, she's a clinician just like me. And she created that to help not only herself, but her patients. So to not talk about BPD, but to be doing that style of therapy just doesn't make sense to me. My gut tells me that this probably is just not the right fit for you, but we can ask some clarifying questions to make sure that we're actually hearing her, because again, her answers don't make sense. And so I'm like, maybe we need to ask again in like a clearer way to maybe get that right answer. Or we just need to find you someone else who actually gets you, because I feel like she's missing the mark somehow here. Okay. I know it's kind of a shitty answer. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. I feel like the way that she's spoken to you about your trauma work and your borderline personality disorder seems to kind of minimizing or invalidating, almost like not even really talking about it. And then acting like you just need to process it and move on. All of that just doesn't feel very therapeutic to me. So we'll give her one more chance to kind of figure it out. And maybe we misunderstood. Maybe we weren't clear. Who knows, right? And if that doesn't work out, then we can find someone who will actually help us and meet us where we're at. Now, the comment on this says, I've got a similar problem with my DBT therapist. Man, it's not a good day to be a DBT therapist. I've been dealing with a particular trauma all of my life. She and I have talked about it in the past with the same results. Me escalating in my emotions, normal, by the way, totally to be expected, and urges with minimal resolution. Oh, so no tools, Well, last week in session, I was once again trying to deal with this trauma, and my therapist said we're no longer going to talk about the trauma because it brings up too much emotion for me. Oh, when asked what she meant, she said, I can tell her that I'm dealing with that particular trauma, but we're no longer going to go into depth about it. I am so confused. Have you ever refused to address an issue or trauma with any of your patients? I have not. I know I go down deep in my thoughts and urges, but why would she do this? Therapy is the only place I can talk about it. I've got no other support, Kati. What does this mean? Any insight would be very much appreciated. I have not done that in my own practice. The only reason I could imagine that I would say we wouldn't go in depth about it is if I thought a patient was dangerous. And what I mean by that is danger to self. I mean, I guess they could be danger to me too, but it's more apt, especially with my BPD patients, that they're danger to self, kind of like in the self-injury, suicidal ideation type of way. And if I thought that us talking about in therapy wasn't getting us anywhere and you were leaving our sessions like more dysregulated and more upset, I might be concerned that you'd harm yourself. And so, but I just still don't. But I could see somebody potentially, that's not me, somebody else saying like, let's not talk about that anymore. I get it. In my case, usually when I have this happen with patients, I give more time at the end of the session to kind of de-escalate, like come down from that intense emotional experience. We'll usually use some grounding techniques. We'll do some breathing. We'll talk about something lighthearted, and then we'll wrap up the session so that I'm not leaving you completely, dysregulated and discombobulated. And so that's the way I do it, but I could see someone maybe saying that they're not going to because they don't have the tools to help you with it. And the fact that you have talked about it over and over and with minimal resolution makes me wonder if it's possible that DBT is not the best fit, kind of like with the first person's question, like maybe we need to find a trauma specialist. There are different types of therapists for a reason, right? We can't be a jack of all trades. I can't help everyone with everything. I'm not going to be any good. That's like what, they say, jack of all trades, master of none, right? I'll be moderate at everything, but I'd rather be great at just a couple of things. That's why I specialize in eating disorder treatment, and really borderline personality disorder, like self-injury work, stuff like that. That's my shtick. I can do that all day long. And you want a therapist that works with your issues, that well. You want a specialist. And so I might encourage both of the people who ask these questions, the comment and the original question, to find a trauma therapist, because both of your therapists just don't seem to have the knowledge or the expertise to help you with trauma. And that seems to be the biggest piece right now. I love DBT. It is incredibly beneficial for everyone, but especially those of us with borderline personality disorder. However, as someone who's been certified for many years and did it forever, it's not really trauma work. Like I did most of my trauma research and understanding of it for my second book, Traumatized. That's made me a better clinician for that, by just doing that work. But that wasn't in my training. That definitely wasn't in my DBT, certifications. It wasn't there because that's not the focus. Most of DBT, I really feel, and you can disagree with me on this, but I think it's mainly emotion regulation. It's like the mindfulness component is noticing where things are in your body so you can get a hold of them more quickly. Emotion regulation. Then there's a whole pillar on emotion regulation, but even in our relationships, like how do we communicate without losing our shit? How do we ask for what we want? There's all of these tools and things all around us managing the emotional intensity that can come along with BPD. And that's not trauma work. There's a piece of it that is helpful, but that's only like one small piece. And so I would find someone who specializes, and I think that you will get all the benefit from that. Okay? Keep me posted. Moving on to question number 5, this question says, Kati, can you talk about learned helplessness and what to do to combat it? Okay, learned helplessness is kind of this experience when in our life things happen and we don't have any control over them, meaning usually we're children, so we don't have the strength to fight back. We aren't fast enough to run away. And so we kind of do the freeze or the fawn response, right? We play dead or we try to keep them so happy that they won't hurt us anymore. And those like inactive responses, that freeze and that fawn, is more of a helpless, inactive response to a threat. And the reason I bring it up like that is because when we're younger and we're in those situations over and over and over, and we always find ourselves feeling like there's nothing I can do to make this better. I can't run away. I can't fight. I have to just like play dead, sit here and take it, or try to please them and hope that they don't hurt me, right? We start to learn through repeated experience that we can't help ourselves, that we can't save ourselves, that we can't protect ourselves. And that turns into this learned helplessness that like, there's nothing in life I can do that's going to make this better. So we take that out into our life as we get older and we still act that way, meaning that when we're hit with any inconvenience, doesn't matter how big or small, everybody's different, but I find this kind of applies to anything, something that we run into that's like a roadblock or a hiccup, and we immediately are like, it's not going to work out. This is going to be terrible. There's nothing I can do. And we don't even want to try because we've learned through life that trying doesn't get us anywhere. And so I say all of that to help you understand what learned helplessness is and then talk you through how do you combat it. So the good news is that any time in life when we learn a certain type of behavior, a certain way of interacting, and we do it over and over because that's kind of our experience. When we learn things, we can unlearn things. Yay! Which means that we can learn how to not act in those helpless type of ways. But the only way we can do that is through having different experiences and different behaviors. And it's going to be really uncomfortable. I just want to set you up for success by letting you know that it's going to be uncomfortable because you're doing something different, not because you're doing something wrong, because you're doing something new and different, which is the whole goal, which means that when you have that, first we have to start tracking our thoughts, okay? The first step is to recognize those learned helplessness thoughts that come up. It could be the nothing I ever do is going to be enough. This is never going to work out. I know this, I'm not going to get that raise. I never get anything good, right? Whatever those negative kind of self-limiting thoughts, I could try really hard, but it's never going to turn out. Whatever that is for you, I want you to start writing those down. And the reason I want you to write them down is because I want you to start being more aware of them so you notice them when they come up. Because if we don't know when they're coming up, how are we supposed to change them, right? We can't. So I want you to notice. And then, so we get more comfortable with that. We're recognizing that when we're talking trash, when we're saying things aren't going to get better. And then I want you to start paying attention. The thought comes up. This is never going to get better. And instead of what you'd normally do, which is probably retreat, pull away, shut down, ignore, maybe go into a depressive episode, whatever it is, instead of doing that, we're not going to do those things anymore. We're going to act in a different way. We're going to try anyways. And I think it's probably easiest if we try kind of what I'd call like low threat things, meaning like small things that aren't going to hurt us if it doesn't happen. You know, we want to have it be something that doesn't take a ton of energy or a ton of preparation, but it's like, let's say, I don't know, we got an email from our boss and we're just sure that it's not going to work out and they're not going to give us the raise that we asked for. And we're like, you know, this is all terrible. What if instead of just retreating and ignoring, what if we checked a fact, or what if we asked, or we followed up? Or what if instead of pretending that everything's horrible and this person hates me and it's never going to work out and we ghost and we leave, what if instead we lean in and we, especially if there's someone close to us, we'd tell them, hey, I'm just having some negative thoughts about this and feeling like not connected. Everything's good with us, right? Right? We check in, take the temperature. Now I know those things I mentioned might be too intense. You know what you find, you're going to recognize when this is coming up, and whatever that behavior is, when you want to pull back, when you want to retreat, when you want to shut down, I want you to not. I want you to keep trying anyways. I want you to push forward, because we're doing this with the goal of slowly proving to our brain and body that we do have some agency over our life, that we can act in certain ways that keep us motivated, keep us going, and that we aren't helpless, that we're actually empowered. But we're not going to believe that if we don't have the experiences to back it up. And so we have to create space for those experiences to happen. Yes, it takes time. Yes, it takes practice. You didn't learn this learned helplessness overnight, so we're not going to unlearn it overnight either. So be patient with yourself. And each time you act differently, I want you to like celebrate in your head. Be like, Kati would be so excited. She would be like popping the champagne or like blowing one of those like what are those called? Those little party favors that go, you know, what are those things? You know what I'm talking about. I would be doing all of that for you because I know how uncomfortable it is, but I need you to do it anyways. I need you to breathe and sit with it. And we'll slowly prove to our brain and body that we aren't helpless at all. In fact, we actually can control so much of our life because we have complete and total control over ourselves. Okay? Let's move on to question number 6. This question says, Kati, I can't let go of my ex. It's been a year and a half. Please help me. I love this question. It's super relatable. I think all of us have at one point or another thought like, maybe we'll get back together. Things could be different. We could be so happy together. And I'm forgetting the term, but there's actually a psychological like word that they created for the experience of only remembering like the peaks and the ending. I just did it for a video. If you remember, if you just watched that video, let me know. Let me know in the comments. But I'm forgetting what it's called. It's like the peak and something effect. But anyways, you only remember the peaks of a relationship and how it ended. And if you think about it, whenever we look back on a relationship, especially if we're lonely and feeling disconnected, we look back on that relationship and we only see the good things. We forget why we broke up. We forget why the relationship deteriorated. And I know for some of you might be like, well, they broke up with me. There's usually a reason. There's usually some kind of disconnect, whether it was that I've been in these relationships too, where we are making the relationship out to be something that it's not. Like I can dream a big dream, you guys. I can get so excited. I love love. I can be such a romantic, and that can be great, or it can be devastating for me because I can imagine a relationship to be like really intense and loving and caring and wonderful and create this big dream for the future for us. And the other person is like, meh, she's okay. Right. And then I can be devastated when the relationship ends. And so I think sometimes when we don't let these people go, it's not because that relationship was healthy and loving and amazing. It's because we only remember the good parts. And so I'm going to ask you, this is that tough love answer. I'm going to ask you to do something that sounds horrible, but is what's going to help you let this go. I want you instead to remember the bad times. I want you to spend a little time thinking about all the shit they put you through. How did they break your heart? Did they break up with you? How did this happen? What did they say? Did they even say anything? Did they send you some shitty text? Is it like Sex and the City where it was like a post-it note? I'm sorry, I can't, don't hate me. Like what happened? I want you to be honest and remember those bad times. The times they didn't respond to your text for 2 days, or they told you they were going to take you somewhere and they didn't follow through. When they decided to ghost you at a very important time or forgot to get you a birthday card. I'm just making up a bunch of stuff, but you know what I'm talking about. I want you to acknowledge the garbage because you're overlooking it. You've got rose-colored glasses on. You're looking back at this relationship thinking it could have been the thing. And this is, again, I know this is a tough love answer, but I'm just doing it because we've all been there. And sometimes you just need someone to shake you out of it. But I am a firm believer in that the things that are meant to work out just do. You can't run from the things that are meant for you. They'll find you. And also, you can't chase things enough that aren't meant for you. So if something's meant for you, you can't get away from it. It's going to happen. Get ready. And if something isn't meant for you, I don't care how much you run and fight and chase and cry, it's not coming for you. And the sooner we can all acknowledge that, myself included, the freer you feel. Because so much of my life, I don't know if this resonates with anybody, but I've felt like if I just control things, I'm such a control freak. You guys know this. I'm like recovering, but still there. I think if I act in a certain way, passive aggressive, if I say this thing this some kind of way, or if I act this way around this person, then I'll get them to realize, or if I'm just put off enough, Sean will ask why I'm upset, No, that's so unhealthy. Come out and say it directly, right? But I'm trying to control things that are out of my control. And I'm trying to cling on to things that aren't mine. Make sure that I can still do this thing, or that I have that thing, or, if I send out another email, then finally I'll get that promotion or that deal will come through. No, it won't. We've done all the things that we're supposed to do. You showed up in that relationship. You were there for that person. It didn't work out. And I just believe that that's the way that things are supposed to be. Things that work out just work. If you think of any relationship you've ever had, whether it's a friendship or even an opportunity in your career, those are like things worked out because they were supposed to. Lately, I've been thinking about like miracles in my life, like all the things that happened. There's no reason, or I couldn't have prepared for it. I didn't expect it. Even the way that I met Sean, or even some of my friends, like all the things that had to fall into place for those things to come to fruition, it just did. And when something ends, it's because it wasn't supposed to be, right? Those things just didn't line up. And I know that's again, shitty answer, but we're going to have to spend some time thinking about the reasons that it didn't work. And I encourage you, and this is going to be the next layer. So we've thought about the reasons it didn't work and the shitty things they did and the ways that they hurt us. And then I want you to start putting together who you think the next person you'd want to be with. Like, who is this person? What do they look like? What types of attributes do they have? Are they honest? Are they friendly? Are they gregarious? Do you want someone that's super chatty? Are they not very social? Do they prefer to stay in? Do they like to travel or not? Do they love dogs or cats or guinea pigs or whatever? Think about all of that, because I want you, instead of focusing on this past person who left us or we left them and it ended and things didn't work out, I want you to look forward to a different person who is a better fit for you, someone who doesn't leave you hanging, and someone who wants to be with you and is showing up for you in the way that you need. Let's focus on that. And then I got this from my friend Amy. She was on my podcast a while ago. If you didn't watch it, I would encourage you to do so. But she talked about once you have that list of who the person that you want to be with is, then imagine who you need to become to attract that kind of person. And that gives you some of that personal work, right? Well, if that person's such a badass, then I need to be a badass. Okay, well, then that means I got to stop this negative self-talk. I got to get my shit together. I need to I need to start getting out more. I need to be friendlier or whatever it is, right? Maybe I need to get back in therapy. What is it? I know that might not be the answer you're looking for, but I'm hopeful that that's the answer that will help you move on. Because when things don't work out, I know it's devastating. I don't expect you just to move on quickly, but a year and a half, I think we've grieved. It's okay to let yourself grieve too. Maybe that's another piece of it, is you haven't let yourself feel it. But once we've done that, then we have to remember why it ended. We often tend to just look at the positives. Hang in there, okay? There's somebody out there for you that will be a perfect fit that won't feel like such a battle like this one, okay? Moving on to question 7. This question says, hey, Kati, I hope you're doing well. I am. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for everything you do in this channel. Therapy is so hard to afford for me, and your videos have been very helpful. I'm so glad. Yay. Can you talk about social anxiety and toxic shame? Because of social anxiety, I avoided lots of social situations and was scared to do things on my own too. I didn't experience many things that people my age did. I feel like I'm a burden for my friends, and they are just being nice. Ooh, listen to that self-talk. Okay, I'm not even going to really talk about social anxiety. I'm going to talk about the shame, because you have, for whatever reason, and I'd encourage you to be curious, not judgmental about this. Why do you think that you avoiding social things or having a tough time with it has made you a burden? Where did we hear that? Or why do we think that? Where does that belief come from? I want you to be curious. Again, not judgmental, just curious. We're just doing some detective work here, right? There's some kind of judgment that you have in there that has caused you to believe that because of your social anxiety, that something's wrong with you. Because shame, remember, isn't like, it isn't that I did something wrong or that I'm embarrassed. It's something's intrinsically wrong with me, like I'm broken. And I'm curious where that belief came from. It might be in the way that you talk to yourself. If that's the case, then you can kind of see where I'm going with this. We're going to have to do some bridge statements, right? Bridge statements are small shifts in the way that we talk to ourselves, moving it from a negative into a positive. Remember, we can't do that huge jump. That's like toxic positivity. Like if you think, I'm so stupid, fat, ugly, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, I'm beautiful, super intelligent, and the most wonderful person on this earth, your brain's going to be like, what? We don't believe that. We've been believing this forever. How are we going to jump to this? We have to build a bridge. So we're going to build a bridge from I'm a burden to my friends. I'm so difficult or whatever. Those are just the things I'm kind of hearing through here. I'm behind for my age. And we're going to bridge statement it where we're like, it's possible that maybe my friends don't think I'm quite as big of a burden as I think I am. Maybe, possibly. We don't know. I'm just not quite as big. And that sounds so similar, but I don't know about you. I can feel the difference when I say it. It feels very different. I think when we say nasty statements to ourselves, we say them so factual, so direct that like, this is the truth. Boom. This is how it's happening. Yada, period. And it's like factual. Boom. But when we open it up a little bit and we're like, it's possible, maybe this could be true, we open it up to it might not be fully true. It doesn't say it's not true. It doesn't say it is true. We're right in that middle. And that's really where growth can happen. That's where we can start changing the conversation that we have with ourselves. And I would even challenge you further to look for some facts to support the fact that you are not a burden and that you are just where you need to be. We find what we look for. It's like when you finally see a new car out and you're like, oh my God, now I see it everywhere. Like that Rivian truck, I swear I saw it everywhere for a while. I was like, oh my God, everybody has them. No, I just knew what it was and then I started to see it everywhere. And so I want you, if you're looking for it, you will find it. I want you to look for things that support the fact that you are a wonderful friend and your friends love you. You are not a burden. I want you to look for things that prove that you are right where you're supposed to be, that you're not behind at all, that you're doing the things that you can do. Look for those things because you'll find them, but we have to look for them. We often just look for the things. It's the negative bias, right? Our brain wants to look for threats. So therefore it means it's always looking for things to support the negative, not helpful, makes us feel like shit. So let's give that a go and then report back. Okay. Final question. Question number 8 says, hey, Kati, when is the right time to seek therapy? I love this question. I've been feeling burnt out and exhausted for at least 3 years. I feel like nothing is helping. The right time to seek therapy is today. yesterday, in fact. I believe firmly that everyone can benefit from therapy. And I also know and speak from, I've been in and out of therapy since I was 15. And the truth is that when I know I need to get back in therapy, it probably takes me a good 6 months before I do it. I'm just being honest. So no judgment that it's taken you a while. It takes me a while. Why? It's expensive. It's time consuming. I'm in a new area and I'd have to find a new therapist. All of that can be stressful. It can be hard. But the truth is the right time to seek therapy is now. If we've ever felt overwhelmed, if we've ever felt stressed out, we all do all the time, having a therapist in place can really give us that safe space to talk about it. There's never another time in our day or in our life where we get like 50 minutes or an hour just dedicated to us, what we're thinking, how we're feeling, having someone sit there and hold the space and listen. We don't get that in any other part of our life. And so it's really important. I mean, some of you are like, I have great friends. I'm sure you do, but you share space, right? They tell you, you tell them. They also have their own thoughts and you might not want them judging you. So you're not going to tell them that, oh, maybe I do drink a little too much. You're not going to tell them. You don't want them judging you. Or maybe, your insecurities about your relationship or your body, you might not feel comfortable saying that, even though they are great friends. That's what therapy's for. It gives you a space to be able to share the things that you might not feel comfortable sharing otherwise. And I think for all of us, it's really, really beneficial to go sooner rather than later. If you've been feeling burnt out and exhausted for at least 3 years, therapy could really be not only a wonderful time for you for like a self-care piece, that breath in to help you alleviate some of that burnout, but also a safe space for you to talk through maybe what's causing this or what created this and see another way out. They can help you untangle maybe all of the things that cause the burnout and exhaustion, help you better place boundaries or get more confident in yourself. It depends on where this is coming from, but find a better balance in your life. I think it could really be beneficial. So if anybody out there is considering, when do I seek therapy? If you ever could benefit from having someone listen to you vent and offer support and guide you towards a better life, better choices. Honestly, anybody can benefit. It's like, if you've ever thought that you might need therapy, chances are you do. I think we often think we have to be like at our worst of the worst, like on the bottom of the barrel, feeling terrible before we reach out. And the truth is, the sooner we reach out, the better. Just like going to a doctor, you don't want to wait until you have walking pneumonia before you go in. You want to go in when you've got a cold and a cough that just won't go away. That's when you want to go in. I've had this for 2 to 3 weeks. Think of your mental health no different. The sooner we get into therapy, the better, because the less unpacking we're going to have to do, and the better you'll feel and the more motivation you'll have to make the changes that they recommend. Does that make sense? So get in now. It's never too early. Everyone can benefit from therapy. There's no judgments. I feel like everybody should be in therapy. And most of us are in therapy because someone in our life won't go to therapy. So get in. I promise it's helpful and wonderful. Just make sure that you find someone who's a good fit. Someone that you feel like, you know what? They seem pretty cool. I can talk to them. I know it's uncomfortable, but I can talk to them. I want you to feel that. And that will ensure that the therapy is beneficial. Okay? Thank you all so much for listening and watching. Thank you for shopping our sponsors. It really does help to support the podcast. Have a wonderful week. Do your homework, and I'll see you next time.